What's going on, guys? Dottz here, and today I'm bringing you a beginner overview to the Hunter class in World of Warcraft, giving you an introduction to the class and some beginner setups that you can use to get used to the class and its mechanics. This guide does assume that you have at the very least a basic understanding of World of Warcraft, but are unsure about how a class plays and whether or not it is right for you. So let's get into today's video covering the Hunter class. The Hunter is a damage-dealing class that can play as either melee or ranged. The Hunter in World of Warcraft is your stereotypical ranger class with the ability to use a ranged or melee weapon to fight their foes, all while their trusty companion helps them in the battling of their enemies. The Hunter is a pure damage-dealing class, meaning that it has no healing or tank specialization. However, each of the different Hunter specializations focuses on something different, giving you a different feel based on which specialization you choose. Beast Mastery Hunter focuses on mastering the command of their animal companions and building a powerful synergy with their companions by bringing several bonuses to both their own and their pets' abilities. Marksmanship Hunters are skilled sharpshooters, focusing on defeating opponents through powerful ranged attacks, using their pet primarily for support, or just simply gaining a damage boost if they choose to forego their pet entirely. Finally, Survival Hunters are the melee specialization of the class, and they are rangers who can engage enemies up close or even at mid-range, utilizing their pet, high mobility, utility, and damage over time skills to wear down their enemies. Hunters use a resource called Focus to cast their skills, which regenerates slowly over time or can be instantly restored with other skills. One of the great benefits that the Hunter range specs have is that many of the skills can be cast while moving, unlike many of the other casters in World of Warcraft. In addition, Hunters start wearing leather armor, but eventually are able to use mail armor that utilize agility as their primary stat to deal damage, and can wield bows, guns, crossbows, polearms, swords, axes, and staves. Any race in WoW except the Drakthir can play as a Hunter. Now, the following builds are going to be tailored towards new players, looking to make your rotation as easy and straightforward as possible while adding as few additional skills to your action bars. If you're looking for something more advanced, more tailored towards that end game, raiding, high key mythic plus, and rated PvP, there are other websites that you can check out. Thankfully, these builds that I have for you guys today don't differentiate all that much from the more advanced versions, but just opt to, like I said, focus more on passives as well as a couple of more defensive augmentations to allow newer players to be able to better cover their mistakes. Now, before we do get into the Hunter builds though, I do just want to touch on the pet specializations, as knowing what pet to use plays an important role when playing your Hunter. Hunter pets fall into three categories: ferocity, tenacity, and cunning. An easy way to think of it as a new player is that ferocity pets focus on dealing high damage, tenacity pets focus on being tanky and protecting the Hunter, while cunning pets provide utility. What I'd best recommend is having a ferocity pet for questing and group content such as dungeons and raids, having a cunning pet, namely a raptor, for PvP due to it providing a healing debuff on your enemies, and finally I'd also recommend grabbing a tenacity pet in case you feel you and your pet are having trouble staying alive while questing. Since Hunters can have up to 5 pets that they can choose from at once, but only one can be active, and they're able to store more in the stables in the cities, you can grab a whole variety of pets so that you always have whatever pet you need for every situation. A good place to look into WoW pets is going to be wowpetopia.com, and a link could be found in the description below. Now, with pet specializations out of the way, let's move into our talent builds, starting with the Beast Mastery Hunter. Beast Mastery Hunters are one of the easiest specs to play in WoW and are really good for new players. This build focuses on augmenting our area of effect damage, the one that I have for you guys today, since most new players to WoW tend to focus on the overland and questing content or dungeon content. So we also do take some talents in this build that give us some extra healing and defensive boosts, allowing us to easily recover from any mistakes that we do make. This build focuses on giving us a lot of passive boosts, and I'll be going over any active abilities that we gain in the rotation section. The import string for this talent build shown on the screen can be found in the description below. Simply go to your talents pane, your bottom left side, click the drop down arrow, click import, and you will be able to paste the string in the description and import the specialization. Now let's move into the rotation for the BM Hunter. So I'm going to recommend that you grab a Spirit Beast or a Core Hound pet as you play the Beast Mastery Hunter, because while in the intro I said you typically use a Ferocity pet for dungeons and raids, Beast Mastery is going to be a little bit different. BM Hunters can actually tame special pets that the other two Hunter specs are unable to tame due to their affinity to their companions. So even those Spirit Beasts, which are technically tenacity pets, they do become favored for group content. However, Core Hounds are also a good option to have due to providing the group buff equivalent to Bloodlust, which is a mandatory buff that needs to be present in all group content. So if your group needs Lust, go with a Core Hound. If not, go with the Spirit Beast. Now, in terms of the damage dealing rotation, it is very easy for BM Hunters. You're going to simply want to use your Bestial Wrath offensive cooldown on cooldown, use Death Chakram on cooldown, cast Barbed Shot on cooldown, cast Kill Command on cooldown, cast Kill Shot on cooldown when your target is below 20% health, but otherwise, you just spam Cobra Shot, or if you have 3 or more enemies that you're attacking, use Multi-Shot. In terms of some offensive notes, you're going to want to pop your Bestial Wrath, like I said, whenever you want to deal some big damage. Now, whenever you're in a group, using the Ferocity Pet's Primal Rage right when a big boss fight's about to start, that's the Lust equivalent, is going to give your group a massive haste buff, increasing the speed at which everyone can use their skills. But like I said earlier, if you are using a Spirit Beast, do not worry about this so much. Use Kill Shot when your enemy is below 20% HP for a big burst of damage, and then use Tranquilizing Shot to help purge helpful buffs from your enemies. Defensively, you're going to want to use Disengage to get away from your enemies or from a negative AoE spell in a pinch, all while granting yourself a nice boost of speed. If you need even more speed, use Aspect of the Cheetah. Use Acceleration when you need a big heal in a pinch, or Mend Pet if your pet needs one. And if you're taking a ton of damage and need to stop it, you can need to escape, pop Aspect of the Turtle. If you simply need to reduce the damage you're taking, use Survival of the Fittest. Use Intimidation to stun your enemy and relieve some pressure for a short time. Freezing Trap can be good to CC a particular enemy while you fight others. Keep in mind any damage will break this trap, so if there's a problematic enemy in a dungeon, tossing the Freezing Trap at them will help. You also do have Tar Trap and Binding Shot, which are good for slowing and rooting enemies, so they can have trouble reaching you. In terms of a stat priority, Agility is going to be our primary stat, so that's always going to be our first focus, followed by Haste, Critical Strike, Mastery, and then Versatility. Moving into our next spec, that is going to be the Marksman Hunter. Marksman Hunter is kind of like the opposite of Beast Mastery Hunter in the regards that while BM focuses heavily on your pet's damage, the Marksmanship Hunter completely forgoes using a pet. This gives the Marksman Hunter the Lone Wolf buff, increasing their damage done by 10%. The spec also does have a bit more complexity than Beast Mastery Hunter, which will become evident when I get to the rotation, so Marksman is going to be better for those who want a range playstyle with some more depth. Similarly to the Beast Mastery setup that I created, this build focuses on augmenting our area of effect damage, since like I said, most new WoW players tend to focus on questing and dungeon content. We will also be taking some talents that give us some extra healing and defensive boost, like I said, allowing us to easily recover from any mistakes that we make. This build will be giving us a lot of passive boosts, and we will once again be discussing any active abilities in the rotation section. The import string for the Marksman build can also be found in the description below. Now, moving into the rotation section of the Marksman Hunter. Remember, we're not going to be using a pet as a Marksman Hunter because we gain 10% damage from having no pet out thanks to that Lone Wolf passive. So if you want to play a Hunter spec that doesn't have a pet, this is going to be the one for you. The only time you might want to consider a pet is going to be for PvP, because Raptors do give you access to a strong healing debuff, so that might be something you want to consider. Or if you are questing and you're having trouble with a certain fight, taking out a Ferocity or Tenacity pet can help you with some of the great pet bonuses while you're questing. Now, in terms of the actual rotation itself, our big damage cooldown is going to be True Shot, so we do want to use that on cooldown. We also want to use Volley on cooldown for big AoE situations. You're also going to want to use Double Tap on cooldown, Death Chakram on cooldown, Explosive Shot on cooldown, Rapid Fire on cooldown, and then we also want to use Kill Shot on cooldown when our enemy is below 20% health, or whenever it procs, allowing us to use it outside of execute range, and you'll know if that happens because the ability will be glowing. You also want to use Aim Shot on cooldown, or whenever you get a Lock and Load proc, again, the spell will be glowing during that time. You also want to, after you use aimed shot, use arcane shot to spend something that you have called precise shots. So basically, whenever you use aim shot, it generates these charges. So your next, I believe it's 2 arcane shots, basically will deal more damage, and you'll know if that's occurring because the arcane shot icon will be glowing. If you're in an AoE situation, however, you're going to want to use multi-shot instead. Now, outside of all of that I just mentioned, you want to use arcane shot to just spend your focus, or multi-shot if there are 3 or more enemies. Multi-shot in this build will also proc another passive that you have called trick shots, which will make your next aim shot or rapid fire do AoE damage, which is pretty cool. You also then, if all of that is on cooldown and you have nothing else to do, you use steady shot when there's nothing else going on. So as you can see, definitely more of a complex rotation than Beast Mastery Hunter. A lot of stuff you're going to be trying to keep on cooldown, but again, if you follow the priority that I listed in this video, you should be more than okay. Some offensive notes is that you want to use True Shot to, like I said, deal your big amount of damage. You're going to want to use the same rotation as I listed above, but you're just going to be executing it significantly faster since True Shot reduces the cooldown of Rapid Fire and Aim Shot significantly. You also, once again, want to use Tranquilizing Shot to purge helpful buffs from your enemies. The defensive notes are pretty much the same as the Beast Mastery section, so if you've listened to those, you can pretty much skip this, but I'm just going to go over it for those who maybe skipped to here. Use Disengage to get away from your enemies or from a negative spell in the pinch, and you can also use Aspect of the Cheetah to give yourself a bigger boost of speed after you disengage. You can use Exhilaration when you need a big heal in a pinch, or Mend Pet to heal your pet. If you're taking a ton of damage and need to stop it, you can pop Aspect of the Turtle, or if you just simply need to reduce the damage you're taking, use Survival of the Fittest. Freezing Trap can be good if you want to CC a particular enemy away while you kill others. Let's say it's problematic, just Freezing Trap it and then you can just ignore it. But keep in mind, any damage will break the Freezing Trap. Binding Shot and Tar Trap are going to be good for slowing and rooting enemies, so they will have trouble reaching you. The stat priority for Marksman Hunter is once again your primary stat Agility, followed by Mastery, followed by Critical Strike, followed by Versatility, followed by Haste. Now, our final spec for the Hunter, that is going to be the Survival Hunter. Survival Hunters are the melee specialization of the class, using a pet and a two-handed weapon to deal its damage. The spec, similarly to Marksman, has a bit more complexity than the BM Hunter, so Survival is going to be for those who want a high mobility melee playstyle. Similarly to the other builds in this guide, this build will focus on augmenting our area of effect damage, since once again, new players do focus typically more on dungeon and overland content. We also take some talents that give us some extra healing defensive boosts, like I've been saying this whole guide, allowing us to recover from any mistakes that we may make as a new player. This build focuses on giving us a lot of passive boosts, and any actives will be gone over in the rotation section, which is going to be coming right up here, and the import string for this talent build can be found in the description below. Now, in terms of a rotation and a recommended pet here, we're going to be using a Ferocity pet for PvE and a Raptor for PvP. You can use whatever Ferocity pet you want in PvE. We're just trying to get that extra damage that the Ferocity pets have, and also access to that Bloodlust equivalent buff. Now, in terms of our rotation for dealing damage, we're going to want to use Coordinated Assault on cooldown. I recommend using it at high focus as well, so you can take full advantage of the buff. Use Kill Shot on cooldown when your enemy is below 20% HP. You also want to use Kill Command on cooldown. Spread your Serpent Sting dot to as many targets as you can, but basically just use, if there's only one target, use Serpent Sting and just maintain that dot on your opponent. Afterwards, use Death Chakram on cooldown, Explosive Shot on cooldown, Flanking Strike on cooldown, Wildfire Bomb on cooldown, and then if there are 3 or more enemies, you also want to use Butchery on cooldown. When there's nothing else to do, simply spam Mongoose Bite. In terms of offensive notes, use Coordinated Assault whenever you're ready to deal big damage to your enemies, as it will cause your pet's basic attacks to empower some of your skills. When you're in a group, use Primal Rage from your Ferocity pets right when a big boss fight starts to give you and your group a massive haste buff. Remember, that Bloodlust buff, increasing the speed at which everyone can use their skills. You also want to use Tranquilizing Shot to purge helpful buffs from your enemies. Defensively, very similar to the other two specs, Disengage to get away from your enemies or negative spells, giving yourself a nice burst of speed afterwards, or use Aspect of the Cheetah for even more speed. Use Acceleration whenever you need a big heal in a pinch, and Mend Pet when your pet needs one. If you are taking a ton of damage and need to stop it so you can escape, pop Aspect of the Turtle. If you are just simply needing to reduce that damage that you're taking though, use Survival of the Fittest. Freezing Trap can be good if you want to CC a particular enemy while you fight others. Keep in mind though that any damage will break this trap. Binding Shot, Wing Clip, and Tar Trap are good for slowing and rooting enemies down so that they have trouble reaching you, or in the case of Wing Clip, they have trouble escaping from you. Now, stat priority for the Survival Hunter is going to be Agility first, Haste second, Critical Strike third, Versatility fourth, and Mastery fifth. But guys, with that being said, that is going to be it for my Hunter Beginner Guide for World of Warcraft. Hopefully you guys found this helpful if you are new to Hunter or are considering playing the class. If you have any questions about anything in this guide, please feel free to leave a comment below. And if you found this video helpful, I would really appreciate if you left a like on it. And if you want to keep up to date with these World of Warcraft beginner class guides, as well as future WoW guides and content that I do have planned, please hit that subscribe button as well as the bell to keep those notifications on. So thank you all so much for stopping by today. I do really appreciate it. As always, I'm Dottz Gaming, and I'll see you all next time.